Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Today is September the 2nd, 2025. So let's look at the setup with our stat data. This setup is very similar to Friday. So the market went short in the Asia session, went short in the London session, and the setup here, this is the way the market should have set up on Friday. So where we should have kind of pulled through this 12-hour low to set up basically a pull, um, yeah, almost an expansion, right? Kind of like a move to set up to kind of just get back in range somewhere. So, but let's look at what the data tells us, right? So if we go and we flip over, so we'll flip over and look, we've already got this set up the way the data is currently in this window here, like the way the data is currently set up for the overnight. Um, So what we'll look at here are a few things. So the first things we'll look at are just what are our chances of retrace, right? So to get back to that 12-hour mid, we're looking at roughly a 70% chance, right? So that's getting back to this green line. There's a 70% chance. Let's see. Let's go back. So midnight, 56% chance. Well, that midnight's further up here. So it's saying there's a 70% chance here, and it's drastically falling off to get back up here. All right. So if we go let's look at the London broken. So London broken, which is going to be the middle of this orange box right here. So that's roughly 70% as well. So that's not too bad. So it seems that in here, so there's the orange box. So in here, we're doing okay. But once we get up here, it seems we're going to tail off the statistics a little bit. But we'll see how that changes because we have a couple things that we could pay attention to. We're going to roll down. So it's telling us that our high of day, right? Our high of day is most likely in. Okay. Does that mean that it is? No. It just means that it's highly likely that it's in, which tells us, kind of like on Friday, that this thing could drive down, pretty far if it wanted to. Doesn't mean it will. It's just that it can. But we've already started this drive down overnight. Whereas if we look back on Friday, at this same time on Friday, we didn't really start that drive down through the low until the open, right? So, and this is where it got a little different, where this midnight should have been a bit lower. There were just a few things that should have been a bit different. So, and either way, let's flip back over. So we know that our low of day can be pretty low. We understand our stats. So now our other stat we want to look at is going to be this New York session here. So the New York session turning false, there's a 62% chance. So what that means is to come back up to the top of this white box here. So 62% chance. So if we do that, there's a chance it's going to increase the statistical likeliness to get back up to these other areas. So how do we determine that? Well, we can kind of do a couple things. So the first thing we can do is start marking out these low of days. Right? So if we go back over here, the low of day here, we've got a 0.7 to 0.6. So let's measure this. I've already got a measuring tool over here. So we are already down to a 1.88, so almost a 1.9. So that kind of knocks this out. This is a 1.5 to 1.4, and our median is 1.6 to 1.7. And then this out here is a 2.0 to 2.1. So I would say that somewhere between 1.7 and 2.1 is where we're most likely to get down into, just because I've looked at this enough to kind of get an idea of it, especially based upon the way the market's set up. Now, it doesn't mean that it couldn't bounce from here and all the world will be good. It doesn't mean that at all. So what we'll do is we'll measure out that 1.7 to a 2.1, just kind of see what that looks like. So that's here. And let's see what 2.1 is. Oh, that was pretty close. That was pretty close. So this, on average, is going to be where we bounce. That doesn't mean we will. It just means on average, that's where we're going to attempt to bounce. That's where the most statistical likeliness is. So, and all this is just a measurement in percent from the actual 1800 open. Where we open is where we measure this from. So that's basically what this is saying. Okay. So there's that low. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, if in fact we were to bounce back up, take this out, what does that do to these? And does it change our low of day? All right, so let's do that. So basically what we're going to determine is we're going to say this thing moved back up, took this out, and we call this basically a false. So because we went short, now this is going to be the false version of that, right? So it didn't stay true because it came back and took the other side of this window. So sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't back over here. So if that were to happen, what does that do to our low of day? There's the 1.0. The median is now 1.3 to 1.4 with an extension 1.9, 2.0 to 2.1, 2.3 to 2.2. So it's roughly the same. Some things have changed. So it's basically telling us now, if that's the case, that once we put in that low, we might try to go sweep it, but chances are it's probably in. Now, does that mean for the rest of the day? No. It just means it's reached as far as it can reach, and then it'll try to do some recovery and then either get rejected or not get rejected. So let's look at our other statistics. All right, so now this midnight level has gone, it's bounced almost 15%. So now we have a 15% increased chance to get up here. Now this is at 86%, right? That's pretty awesome. So now we're saying the middle up here, which we've not gotten back to, now we got an 86% chance to get back up here. That's pretty good. What else? Let's look at the London mid. So London mid. So yeah, we're looking almost 90%. So the middle of this seems like a pretty good target sometime today. All right. So how would we look to trade this? Because there's a lot of data here today. Like this is a really good setup to try to pull, and then push back up into this range. But the problem is because we've already pulled first, we could pop and just rip all the way up there. We could push, get rejected, sweep, and go. Like there's a lot of different things that can happen here. So this is where just knowing your trade and how to trade it matters. So let's just say at the open, what time is it here? Make sure I'm on the right screen. Yeah. So let's just say that this is, okay, we'll give it one more candle at 9:15. I was hoping it would go up more. Anyway, so we'll just buy this here. It's just 2 NQ that we're buying here. And we'll say that our initial target, if we could do this in one of a couple ways. We could look to take one off up here, thinking that we might push up there, knowing that we might try to come back and sweep. Right? So if we sweep, we would be looking to add, or we could just take it all up here. Well, depending upon how far that is, right? That's 150 handles or so. 246. Yeah, I mean, give or take, I don't know, something like that. No, it's not 150. It's less than that. It's over 100 handles, so 120, 130. But either way, I mean, that's not too shabby. There you go. That's a $5,300 win. Now, understanding that if it pulls against you, it could be a $5,300 loss, right? There's no guarantees in this game. So what are we going to look for? Well, we're going to look to hold this box at the open, right? So if we wanted to put a stop loss in place, we could stick our stop loss outside of the low side of this box. Because I could tell you, because of the way that I look at standard deviation, if we go pulling too far through this one right here, I don't necessarily think we're going to get a good enough bounce to try to get up there to go take this thing false. So now let's see how this plays out into the open. All right, so there's our 930 box. It's going to be our support and resistance for now. We hit that one standard deviation, which is nice, and we wicked off of it. That's fantastic, which is setting up a potential to go push. Now, what are we looking for? Looking for a couple things. Mainly what I'm going to be looking for is to get back to this 18 all the way up to 73. So now what I'm going to do typically is I would just leave it here, but because we're going to normally what I would do is I would stick 1 at this 886 and I would stick 1 at this 113, especially now that we've set up this way. All right. And so, and if you don't understand harmonics, that's fine. You don't have to know harmonics to trade, this the way that I trade. This is typically how I would do it. So we'll stick this up here at this 113. So now we'd be looking at, again, taking it at 23.19, taking it up here around 73. There is a target that I had, a rejection target up around 300, but because this harmonic pattern setup, this is what I'd be looking to play for now, right? And what I'll also look at is something like this. Let's see what we get here. Yep, that's going to be a little bit extended for this smaller pattern here. So just in case, I'm actually going to pull it back down to this false line right here because I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to lose it on greed. I'm pretty sure we blew through up here, but anyway. But now, so we're looking, right? So our stop loss down here at this 2 it's $5,000. I mean, the 5,300 for the win. Now, as we move up, we can start pulling this back in, right? Because once we hold here and start to move back up, we don't really want to go sweep that because if we do, we don't want to lose this 930 zone. So here we go. So let's play it out. Now, there's our hold. There's our push to our 618, which is nice. Now we just want to hold all of this is really what we want to do. So we want to just hold. So we'll kind of put it down here and move it up as we go if we really want to be safe. Right? And there we go. So we got our target. And let's see if we get this 113. I'm pretty sure we got that 113. Yeah, we did. We wicked up there. So, there's the trade. There's a trade. Okay? Now, what do we want to look for if we pull again? Well, typically what I'm looking for a long is I want to see, if I'm going to short, I want to see it get back into this 930 zone. So if I short this right now, this is my target right here, somewhere at the top half of this 930 zone. If I were to long it again, I would wait for one of two things. The first thing I'm going to look for is a 50% to 61% retrace. See how we handle that. So let's look and see how we handled it to see if I would actually take this short. So we're holding the 50, we're holding the 50, we're pulling down into the 618. So this is where people are going to start to long it and they're going to get swept. So now because of the way this thing's setting up, we want to wait because we want it to hold this 930 range. I could always enter a little bit late if I had to. Let's see how we hold here. We're not. We're continuing to drive down. So that's too far into that box. So now, for me, I'm not overly interested in a long. It doesn't mean that the long won't work. It just means for me, I'm not overly interested in it anymore. So now we do know that this is a target, right? We know that this 388 up here is a target. So if you wanted to try to gamble, you could. You'd just be adding all the way potentially down into this zone down here, which would just, just wouldn't be good. Not for me anyway. Some days I'm down for it. Some days I'm not. When I've already got a winning trade, there's no interest in doing anything after. So especially if it's too risky. So let's see if we did sweep this 930 zone and we're fighting back through the high side. So now we are, we've gotten back above it. As long as we use it as support and we get a setup to continue, we'd be looking to get this thing up here. So I'd be looking for one of a couple things. You can get a move here. If you're looking for upside movement, you got to be very careful though. Yeah, this could drive all the way back up to 23,412. So what does that look like? Well, it can look like a couple of things if it were to work. All right, now don't forget, if we were to flip over here, this low of day can continue to drive down, right? It can continue to drive down. This is where you have to be safe. You have to be careful. But if this were to work out, I'd be looking for a move that looks something like, let's see here, something like this. Right? Now, the problem is this right side over here, you still need to have it move up to a certain area, probably up in here somewhere, and then you need to see it pull back because on this side, you still need to set up a move. Right now, the problem is this move could also, instead of holding here, it could also try to go sweep again. Why do we say that? Because we've got this load of day data saying that we could still try to sweep again. So this is where if you're going to trade this, you have to understand that that could be a possibility if you're going to trade to the upside. So there's a decent amount of risk there. All right. So I think that's really all I have for this. We'll see if we get back up to the middle of this 12-hour or not before the market closes today. If we do, fantastic. If not, then, we got to trade around the open. So the world is fine and dandy, as they say. But yeah, if you want access to this data, hit me up and we'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll see you next time.